Hello friends, let us today discuss about environmental analysis. What is environmental analysis? It's an important part of strategic management. In the earlier classes, we have discussed about what is strategic management and the process of strategic management. In the process of strategic management, we have seen that strategic management starts with strategic intent and it ends with strategic control and evaluation. To start with the strategic intent, the strategy need to know about the vision of the organization, mission, objectives and goals. When you set the organization vision, it has been set for a longer period of time and strategy provides you a roadmap to attain that longer vision. And when a longer vision of an organization is there and a business that operate in an environment, it faces lot many of factors which create a positive impact on the strategy and a negative impact on the strategy. To know that what are those environmental factors which affects the strategy which we have formulated or which we are going to implement, we need to analyze the environment, or we used to say it as strategic environmental scanning. So environmental scanning take place so that you can identify the positive and negative factors which is going to affect the strategy which we are going to formulate and we are going to implement. Strategic environmental analysis or environmental scanning take place by analyzing the factors which is important to know to frame the strategy effectively. So as I said, strategic intent, where you prepare your vision, mission, objectives and goals, there you need to understand what is the environment in which the business is operating so that you can analyze it properly and according to that you can follow the next step, that is the strategic formulation. So this environmental analysis, as we know that business operate in an environment which need to look after all the factors which favors the business operation, and this favorable factors is divided into, that is business environment or the environmental scanning or analysis is broadly classified into two nature, that is you are having internal environmental analysis and the external environmental analysis. So what this internal and external environment deals with? As I said, the business, when you are going to operate your business in an environmental setup, you need to know certain factors that will help you to frame your strategy effectively. So this factor based on the internal environment you need to analyze, that is internal environment is something which is easily controllable because it is within the organization, as the name specifies. It is internal environment, so it is within the organization and it can be easily controlled and managed by the organization while preparing the strategy. Internal environment deals with, or you can say if you go for SWOT analysis, you have strengths and weaknesses over there which take place in the internal factor of the organization. So internal environmental factors help you to understand that what is the strength of the organization or what are the weaknesses that the organization possesses. You may have a very good workforce in the organization, that is the strength which the organization is having, a very good capacity to produce the product, or a very good managing team, a very good organization structure, a value system in the organization, and all that factor is within the organization which can easily be predicted, managed and changed according to the need of the organization, and it is manageable easily because you can understand it because it works within the requirement of the organization setup. But when you come to the external environment, as the name specifies, it's something which is outside the organization. When it is outside the organization, it comes to the environmental factors, so which is not easily predictable and which is not easily managed. As you cannot predict it, it is difficult for you to manage that factors. Or we say that the external environment of the business is always uncertain. Whereas internal factor is you are having a certainty that if your human resource change or if your human resource doesn't match with the requirement of the organizational needs, you can change that human resource and you can take someone else who fits for the organization goal. But the external factor is not so certain, where you can predict that this is what going to be changed and according to that change you can adopt to the strategy which is there. So what comes in this external environment? External environment again divides into two, that is, you are having micro environmental factor in external environment and macro environmental factor. As the name specifies, micro environmental factor means which is small and again which we can at least manage to an extent, that comes under the micro environmental factor, and macro environmental factor as such which cannot be easily managed. So you cannot easily predict that this change is going to take place and you can make change according to that needs. So what all comes under micro environment? As I said, it is something which is to a limit you can understand this environmental factor and you can adjust your strategy or you can formulate your strategy according to that need to meet or to manage that changes. So in macro environment you will have your suppliers, that is who supplies you the raw materials. So any change in the demand and supply of that suppliers is not so easy to identify, because as the number of competitor increase, the suppliers demand can also increase. So you need to identify that change in the market, that is if the number of competitor increase, the supplier can demand for more. So you need to know that, and based on that you can frame your strategy. Or your competitors, okay, that is also a micro environmental factor which take place where your strategy get affected. So you need to know that who are your competitors, who are the competitors who are producing the similar product, or who are the competitor who can bring a substitute product in the market. So when these changes take place, how it is going to affect your strategy and what you are going to do so that you can easily manage your strategy to implement it effectively. Then the other factor here is the customer. That is the most important factor and most difficult factor to manage, because you cannot easily say that what actually customer need tomorrow. Today you are knowing that yes, this is what actually customer is in need. So as I said, it is uncertain. Tomorrow you cannot say that this taste of the customer is going to be same tomorrow also. So they may change their taste, they may change their needs, they may change their way of purchasing the product. So according to that you also need to get updated. So your strategy need to analyze the change in the market regarding the customer taste, needs and preference, and based on that changes you need to adapt to the market. And when you do that, there you can easily manage the customer and you can easily adopt to that changes and go with your strategy effectively. Then if you take, you have the public or the society. So again, society plays a major role where your business is going to operate. And if you take nowadays, like we hear about the concept of corporate social responsibilities and all that things, that is what we are doing for the favor of the society. Okay, so organization which is operating in a society, the public in large need to be taken into consideration. That what we call as stakeholders. All the stakeholders need to be considered while you prepare a strategy. So that also comes under micro environment, because actually you can at least predict that okay, if this change is been made or this responsibility is been fulfilled, you can easily manage the changes which take place in the society. And what comes under the macro environmental factor? As it is large in number, macro environmental factor is spread across. So you cannot easily say that this is what change take place, because anything can take place in this macro environment, which consists of your demographical factor, your economic factor, political factor, technological factor, socio-cultural factor. Just briefing out this is demographical factor. If you say that change in the age factor, that is purchasing style, all that things depends upon the age, income, sex and all that of the people who are living in the society. That may affect your strategy very badly, because you cannot easily predict what changes is going to take place. And if you take economic factor as you can see nowadays, because of demonetization, inflation, deflation, the purchasing style or purchasing power of the people change because of the economic situation in a country, and that affects the business in a large. So your strategy need to be ready to adopt to that changes or technological factors. Nowadays, you can predict change in technology at every second of the business operation. So, if you are not updating your strategy according to the change in the technology, again it get affected. Political factor, the political party which is in power, according to that the regulations, rules, the policies, everything change, and your business need to adopt to that regulations, changes and policies so that it can sustain in the market. So, it is not easy to identify that to the next power what next political power what changes is going to take place, and according to that you can adjust. And the socio-cultural factor, and socio-cultural factor in the society is now you can see that it is changing in a very vast way, because what people used to prefer earlier, now the new generation is not preferring that. So, that social and cultural factor which take place in the society, that also affects the business in large. So, to understand this, the changes which take place in the market and the changes which is taking place in the business environment, and how these changes affects the strategy which you are going to formulate, we need to go for an environmental scanning. If you do the environmental scanning in an effective way, you can understand both the internal and external factor in the organization effectively, and according to that factor you can set your goal, you can set your objectives of the organization, and you can formulate your strategy effectively, so that you can manage the strategy and you can have an effective strategic management in the organization to achieve your organizational goals. Thank you.